Welcome to Lake County PEG TV's series of interviews with local Lake County candidates for County Supervisor. And we're here right now with Lily Woll, who's one of the candidates for the District 5 Supervisor seat.
Yes.
So Lily, thank you for being part of our interview.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, I'd like to start off just by asking you to introduce yourself to the viewers that may not know you, and to tell us a little bit about your background and your experience and why you're running for the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's around 4 o'clock, if you don't know it, but we're here in Kelseyville Park, and my name is Lily Woll, and I'm running for District 5 Supervisor. And this is my hometown right here. You're at the Kelseyville Park, and behind me is the skate park, and I went to school right over there, and I made trouble right there behind that building sometimes, and I'd play soccer here. So this is kind of fun for me. I'd eat pizza when it was licensed pizza across the street over there. Don't worry, if you know Kelseyville, you know where I'm pointing to. But anyway, so I grew up here in Kelseyville. I went through the whole school systems. I went through primary, the Guard Street, and the high school. And my last year, I was a exchange student in Brazil, and then I came back and I got my GED at the local jail. Not because I was arrested or anything, but I got it there, and I got my GED. It was the only program available at the time. Yeah, and so I got my GED there, and that's what got me into education, I think, because while we were there, the inmates were into it. I was like, come on, guys, let's do this. Okay, what's number one? What's number two? Yeah, and it was really a good time for me, so I thought education was where I should be. And then I had the opportunity after that to work in several different capacities here in Kelseyville. And around the lake, I worked at Canocte Harbor Inn as a dishwasher. I worked at Tacos El Rey as a dishwasher there. Dutch Treat when it was at the lake port. I worked in the bottling, in the winery. And my parents, growing up, had Roto-Rooter of Lake County and a walnut orchard. So I got to experience that, and so I was always into working. And then I went to New York City to school at 18. And there it was just blown away coming from Kelseyville and into New York City. I got lost in the Port Authority bus depot for 2 hours just trying to find my way around. And I ended up staying there for 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I got my bachelor's degree. I started out at the community college, my bachelor's degree. And then I came back to Kelseyville. Oh. And I came back to Kelseyville, and then I had an opportunity to teach English in Spain for a year. And then I came back to Kelseyville again, and I worked at social services for some time, for a year or so. And then I worked at tribal health. And then I worked as an English teacher, ESL teacher in Clear Lake. And
ESL is English as a Second Language.
Oh, yes, thank you. English as a second language. And then I applied to go to the Peace Corps. So I was in the Peace Corps for 2 years in Guyana, and Guyana's in South America. And there I worked with different government agencies and also nonprofit organizations, and also I did a lot of HIV/AIDS awareness, Conservation International. I worked with that agency doing protecting the forest and mostly education through the Peace Corps. And then I went to Mexico, and I lived in Mexico for a year and a half where I had a store. And I owned a store in Mexico. It was the best experience. I owned a store in Mexico. I sold fruits, vegetables, staples, beans, rice. And then I had a couple employees while I was there. And then I moved back to Lake County and eventually started working at the colleges. Mendocino College, Woodland Community College. And now I'm working my first year at Kelseyville High School, which is right here. And Kelseyville High School, I teach Spanish there and English language development. And that was just a whirlwind of my past, excuse me, and yeah,
okay,
that's me.
So that brings us up to today.
Yes.
And now you're running for supervisor.
I'm running for supervisor.
What got you interested in running for supervisor?
So, it's a long story, but I realized in all these different capacities that I had around the lake and working for the different departments, I worked for the county 2 different times, one for the social service, one for the library, but in every capacity I worked in, I saw a disconnect. I saw where organizations can work together to understand what the other does, to help somebody that needs this service that can go to this department or they can go to this department. There needed to be more connection between these departments and how the Board of Supervisors could directly affect what happens and how to support the college. I saw that there was a need there, and I also saw that while I was working at the college, there were students that were recovering from alcohol, one, and the other one was drugs. And both of those students were taking care of other people. One was taking care of their mother, the other one was taking care of her grandchildren. And I wondered who would be taking care of those ladies, or who would be taking care of all the others, if it weren't for those ladies. And those ladies, what happens if they got into drugs again and alcohol? And while I was teaching them, they constantly had a disconnect of the services. There was always transportation. There was a lack of where can they get a job? Where can they get information about a job? How can they get the services to get that job? What kind of rehabilitation and behavioral health services? They had to go all the way to the other side of the lake to be able to get services. It was really difficult for them, but I wanted to see them succeed because they tried so hard. And I realized as a supervisor, I could do more for the county in providing those services, I believe, for those ladies specifically.
Okay, so improve social services is high on your agenda.
Improve improve the social services, not so much the department, but the services in general. Like, for example, have for homelessness, have a year-round homeless shelter, and for drugs. Like I just talked to a friend yesterday, and he has to go to outpatient services in Santa Rosa every day for his mental health issues, right? And he there's nothing here for him specifically. And I believe that there's money available, and I would like to work on improving those services. Like you said, the social service services for the betterment of the people. The people. I see that there's more that can be done.
Okay, well, let's talk about the money side for a second, since you brought it up. The county lost a lot of revenue because of the fires, because of the property taxes dropped significantly after the several thousand homes got burned up. So when you say there's money available, where do you see this money coming from?
I'm thinking about the mental health, that tax that they tax millionaires, the 1% tax that they get, mental health, MH.
So this would be from the state?
This would be from the state.
Okay.
And how to use that money. Thank you. This would be from the state and how to use that money, particularly in providing the services, the mental health services, and if there's a connection between the mental health and the behavioral health. But that's how I started out. That's where I started. That's where I got excited about this, and then I got excited about it. But then as I looked more into what's going on in the government, I saw that there were, for example, that 25% vacancy rate, employment vacancy rate in the county. And I see the county as there's the wheel, everybody's on the wheel, and the departments are all the different spokes, and the county is the middle. It's what holds everything together, the county government. And if people in the county government are doing the jobs of 2 or 3 people because there's not enough people working there, then how can the services necessary for businesses be done? For example, if a business comes to get a permit, how can they be provided that permit if, for example, we haven't updated our area plans, our general area plans, so they don't know how to serve them in that capacity? And then also, if they're so backlogged, each worker there, and they're doing the work of so many people, how do they provide for those services for that business? I want to say. Mm-hmm. So, and each department. I just spoke to somebody last week in the post office, and he was telling me that he works for a department and he's never can get ahead because there's so much work. And I remember that way at social services. There was just so much work, and it was that work culture that's so important. And people are leaving. They're going to Mendocino County. They're leaving. We're having brain drain where they get trained here in Lake County and then they leave. And how to
That's a fact. Yeah.
And how to improve that. And it costs us money every time we have to train. So how do we improve that culture, that work culture, so they feel validated, they feel that their work, what they're doing is important, and they're actually making leeway, first of all, because sometimes it doesn't have to do so much with the money. The money is important. It is. I mean, people want to get paid more. I remember working at social services, and the same people that worked there were getting the benefits that they were doling out. You know, wow. So I mean, they weren't getting paid, and so so the money is getting paid more is important, and to respond to that comp and class study that they have right now going on is very important to the well-being of the employees of the county, but also to improve the work culture, and this way it would spread out and help improve the rest of the community. Right, that's what I believe.
Okay, so
is that your experience?
Yes, it is, as a matter of fact. When I was a young feller.
Yeah, a supervisor, right? For 12 years?
Well, I was, but I'm talking about when I was
like
in my 20s. Uh-huh. And I'm in my 70s now. I worked for a few years at the Department of Social Services.
Yes.
As a social worker. Mm-hmm. And I got paid the grand sum of $560 a month.
Yeah.
So it's improved since then, but of course everything costs more now too. Yeah. But it's always, it was a training ground back then.
Yeah, it was a training ground.
It's been a chronic problem for years.
It was a training ground back then, but also in the social services there was a work culture that people could move up. They could go from the office support to eligibility worker, then to supervisor, and they can actually have they can move up. And then also there was opportunity to tell their supervisor at the as an eligibility worker that, look, if we did it this way, we would improve. So there was creative ways, I remember when I worked there, creative ways that I could talk to my supervisor and say, look, this is a problem, and she would support me. She would support me and say, okay, well, let's see how we can change the system so it can improve everything. And I saw that, and that's why I wanted to, that's why I stayed there for as long as I did, besides learning. But also, I believe that if that creativity, I believe, is important, and there should be opportunity for creativity for, so for example, when I was an eligibility worker, I needed to get certain verification of documents, but nobody had a life that was either black or white. Some people would like, oh, I get money here and I get money there and I live here and sometimes I live there. So I would have to figure out a way that they could provide verification of all those different issues. And I would sit down and work with them. And I think if the planning department had clear ideas of what they could provide for people, and they could feel comfortable going to their supervisors and like, look, let's work this out, and they weren't so overworked, there wasn't so much work, I think that the businesses could have the permits necessary to continue to strengthen and grow the businesses here. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Wow. Well, in terms of local issues just in your district, because you're talking about improving the functioning of the whole county government countywide.
Yeah.
But specifically in District 5, are there any particular issues that you have focused on?
Yes. Oh, definitely. I mean, number one issue for me in District 5 is the fire. During the fire season, it's very important that there is that we have certain evacuation processes in place, that people know exactly who their neighbors are, hopefully to strengthen the community so that they know how to prepare, how to protect their homes from fire, and how to be prepared when there is a disaster. Because Riviera, for example, Clear Lake Riviera, both the Rivieras, Clear Lake Riviera, Riviera West, and the Riviera Heights. Thank you. Riviera Heights, and Buckingham, and Soda Bay. Those are all places that are almost one way in and one way out, and they need to be prepared. And I want to strengthen the communities so that they know who their neighbors are and how to protect them in each household, and know what to do if a fire ever comes. And it's kind of exciting right now, is there's CAL FIRE, for example, has monies available for counties to protect themselves from fire, prepare for fuel abatement and all that. And also, I believe that the homeowners associations, they have the power to support, and they need the support from the county. They need to be talking more, a real dialogue there about how to support the HOA, and so that the HOA can really work with the community, because Clear Lake Riviera is pretty big. I mean, it's huge. Right. So the HOA has a lot of responsibility, and it is a fire-wise community now, but at the same time, each community has that opportunity to learn more about what to do when there's a fire and how to evacuate. And so that's number one issue in District 5 for me. And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited right now for our Kelseyville Business Association.
Wow.
They're doing a lot of good work. I attend meetings as much as possible, and try to get involved with the different festivals that they have here. Right now I'm on the committee for the Bacon Fest. Yeah, the Bacon Fest, which is great. They'll have it in Kelseyville, and it's on Father's Day.
Oh.
And and then at the Cobb Area Council, I'll say that they are doing excellent work as well. I mean, they've had that experience of the fire directly and the work that they have to do. So we can continue to learn from the steps that they're taking as well. I mean, and then the different and strengthen the town hall. So the small organizations, like not small, but the Kelseyville Business Association and these different organizations, to support them and really, as a supervisor, be connected and attend those meetings regularly and have that communication open. I want to be as accessible as possible. And also for me, right now, because 40% of this community is Latino, it's important that a supervisor is bilingual as much as possible, that a supervisor can speak English and Spanish, and that if a concern was made in Spanish, that they could actually communicate with somebody that would represent them, that would support them.
Okay.
And as a bilingual speaker myself, I have that opportunity to not only represent English speakers, but also the Spanish speakers. And I understand how diverse District 5 is.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are a lot of Spanish-speaking people in District 5.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And to be accessible and as friendly as possible, so that, one, to help improve the work culture, and two is that people could come to me, they can feel comfortable contacting me, speaking their voice. I like to listen. I feel like I've done way too much talking, and
Well, that's it. What you do in an interview.
yes, but it's not my style. I would prefer to listen. Yeah, I'd like to listen and hear what everybody has to say.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. It's really important to be a good listener, because that's how you learn from people what their concerns are.
Right. I don't want to go in there with all the answers and this is how we're going to do it. No, because each area is different. Just like I said, each area is diverse, and each area has a lot to offer and to learn from each other. But we can't just take what happens here and move it here. But we can definitely learn from each other and how to improve the services and the connection between all the departments and agencies as much as possible.
Okay. Well, now, let me just ask you this. The Board of Supervisors is made up of 5 people from 5 different areas in the county.
Right.
And in order to get anything really done, it takes 3,
Right.
minimum 3 votes on the board.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you plan on working with the other supervisors who each have their own particular issues and concerns in their districts
Yes.
to get their help to get you?
To get us all through it?
Yeah.
To get going? Yeah, thank you. Oh, I love this question. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ed. So for me, I have 2 masters. I have a master's in education and a master's in Spanish. And I did a dual bachelor's degree. And so for me, to be able to understand something clearly, I have to do lots of research, and I have to understand it and see how it benefits others in other counties. And I'm willing to ask the questions and do the research and really talk about it and really state how important something is for the entire county, how every single person in the county could benefit from this ruling, from the research, from the numbers, from the method of how we're going to do it and how it's going to benefit people, and that's what I look forward to doing, is to really put it out on the table and be convincing in such a way with the numbers, not just with my heart, but with the numbers and the people, hopefully to back it, and the constituents from other areas. And I look forward to doing the work in order to achieve that, in order to get other people on board and to say, look, this is what we have to do, and this is how it's gonna, this is how it could happen.
Okay.
That's what interests me.
I'm looking over at Bob. Okay. So, let's see. Where can we go from here?
So what am I, there's 5 people.
Yeah, and it's in order to...
I'm all this.
Well, I was just saying, in order to get things done, you need to work together, and in order to work together, you need to learn and get to understand what the problems are in other districts I mean, you all share problems that are countywide, but
Right.
everybody's also got their own individual projects and concerns and things they want to get
Yeah.
done.
No.
So,
But I like how you say that. Don't hold that thought. You
well,
know,
the only reason I'm saying that is when I was on the Board of Supervisors one time, I had a bridge. It was a Bailey bridge that we were going to use for a project in my district.
Uh-huh.
But we weren't quite ready to use it yet. And so there was a issue that came up in District 5, in Rob Brown's district.
Uh-huh.
And a bridge had washed out, a little bridge that led into an area where there were a bunch of homes. And I let the county take my bridge and put it in District 5 to help out those people,
Yeah.
with the understanding that it was temporary and eventually I'd get my project done too. But that project was something that was urgent. I mean, they needed it right now.
Right.
And I got criticized by people in
Your
Middletown and
district.
in my district for letting the bridge go to District 5.
Right. Yes.
So that's part of my question has to do with the fact that no matter how good your intentions are, you're going to get criticized by
Right.
people that don't really know the whole story.
No.
And you got to have a fairly thick skin,
Yes.
not to get, really bothered by those criticisms.
Yeah. A couple of things. And yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And did you have the opportunity, and it was probably a long time ago, but to be able to talk with people in your area and say, hey, this bridge was necessary for this project, but it's still, people were like, hey, we
Well-
had that. And was the bridge built?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it all worked out.
Okay.
And of course I would talk to people in my district. I was, constantly going to different groups and organizations and meetings and things to keep in touch, because if you don't, people think you don't care.
Yes.
You've got to be accessible.
Yes, that's it. Accessible, and that's my huge concern, is to really be connected to the people. So, for example, I want to. Oh, I had the other idea too, but I want to go back to being connected to the people. So for me, and for me, part of my campaign is based on that one-on-one connection. This is a local politics. This is a local campaign. And by having that one-on-one contact where I could talk to people and give them the time and give them the ear to listen to them, that is how I plan to get the votes. It's not from mailers, or that could help, or from money. And I am fortunate to have the opportunity to be able to put several signs there. But I have those signs there because I talked to people at length about what they felt about this county or that county. And to me, those moments, I really like people. I like people, and I like to listen and understand where they're coming from, because for them, they are professionals, or they are the ones that understand their issues the most. And by listening to them, I could understand where they're coming from and what the issues are in the county. And I'm fortunate in that I don't have a specific agenda where I see the issues, but I don't think that, like, for example, I'm like, we need a bridge. No, this whole road, Jacobson, my road needs to be paved. No, I don't have a specific agenda. I see what the issues are and what steps we can take to fix them.
Now, oftentimes on the Board of Supervisors, you'll be confronted with controversial decisions.
Yes.
And in a controversial situation, oftentimes there's no real good solution. There may be two or three that are better than the others, but none of them are really what you're looking for.
No.
And so
These options don't work.
it's hard to deal with those decisions, but that's part of the board's job.
Yes.
So when you come to let's say that the sheriff's department needs more deputies, and the building department needs more building inspectors because everybody's rebuilding from the fires and they can't get their inspections done quick enough, and there's only so much money to go around. How do you make your decision on who gets what?
It's the homework. You have to do the research and the homework and really talk about the issues. So, for example, if it was just after the fire or something and there's all of these rebuilds, then maybe that should be a priority. It has to be looked at. All of the different angles have to be looked at very carefully. And I can't just decide from my heart what I want. I have to decide by talking to the sheriffs, each patrol, what do you go through on a daily? How would another patrol officer support you? And then talk to the people that are building the houses, the actual people that are building the houses. Like, what are the hiccups here, and how is it this way? And talk to the department heads and really understand, if they just give them this much, how much can it provide for that, right? And it's not an idea like, well, I think that. No, it's after getting information from as many people as possible and seeing what's a priority and what's a priority in all the other districts, how we're going to go about it, and whether we split it this way or that way. So it's by doing the homework and looking into the issues specifically and weighing the pros and cons and getting input as much as possible from community leaders and the community about what is necessary, and be able to have that conversation. But look, these people have been needing this and this, and yes.
Okay. Listen, I just got the signal from our timekeeper, so we should wrap this up.
Ooh.
Do you have any last things you'd like to say to the viewers?
Yes. Thank you very much for viewing today, Ed Roby. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really appreciated it. John and Alan, thank you for being here as well. What I'd like to say is that for me, being a supervisor is a full-time job. I work at the high school now, but supervisor, that would be my number one job, and I'm willing to put in the hours, the evenings, the days, everything necessary to be able to gather the information and to be accessible enough so that people feel like they could call me anytime and say, Lily, hey, what about this and what about this, and listen to people as much as possible. And I believe by doing this, by creating those relationships within the county and within the different communities, not just this community alone, but if Clear Lake, I worked in Clear Lake for so many years, to have that opportunity for people to call me from there. I used to work in Upper Lake, and Lakeport. I'm like, woo! But for people to be able to contact me and I want to be open-minded, and I want to have the information, the best possible information as much as I can, and ask those questions necessary to be able to make the best choices for the county. And I'm diligent and willing to work to be able to do that.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lily.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.